Hi guys, it's Jack from JRP Custom Painted Furniture. Welcome to my channel. This little old chest is this week's project. As you can see, it's old, it's dusty, it's dirty, it's got stains. It looks like it's had a bit of a hard life. And it's only half been painted. Not very well, I might add, but that's okay. Look at the inside, it's beautiful. We're going to bring this unit back to life. As usual, we're going to start this project with a really good clean. We're going to try and remove as much dirt and grime as we can from the unit by using a pre-paint wash that is a degreaser. I'm just using a microfiber cloth with this clean. As you can see, look how dirty it is. That's just from one corner of the top. But that's okay. We're going to get into all the little areas and make it nice and clean, and then we'll start removing as much paint as we can. I'm starting off using my carbide scraper to try and remove as much paint as I can. At least if we can get this top layer of varnish off, it'll make it a lot easier to sand. Here I've got my Orbital Sander and I've got 100 grit sandpaper on top. We're just going to try and remove as much paint as we can so that it's ready for priming. Now that we've removed the varnish, the top layer is actually coming off quite easily, so that's good. It's going to be less time sanding and more time for painting. I've grabbed my little handheld detail sander to do the edges. Now this is probably going to be the last time you see this little sander because my dog ate it the day after. I'll have to put in an order for a new one soon, so hopefully you won't be waiting too long. Now I'm just using my air compressor just to remove some of the dust, and then we'll move on to giving it a good sand with 180 grit and then 240 grit just to make sure that the wood top is nice and smooth. Here we are going in with the 180 and we'll move on to the 240 as well. I tend to jump in between grits, I must admit. I pull them off and I put them back on all the time, but I've moved across back to the 100 grit sandpaper on my Orbital Sander just so I can give the whole unit a good scuff sand and try and remove the top varnish. Now I thought it's probably a good idea to remove the top of this unit just so I can make sure that I have a nice clean cut for when I go to paint. So just unscrewing all the screws here and we'll lift it off and put it to the side, and then we'll be able to finish our sanding process. I've grabbed my Timbermate Woodfiller and I'm just filling up the side holes on this unit from where the old hardware used to be, and just any other little cracks or dents that I can find along the way. Here's something new for you. If you ever have trouble getting into the tight corners of your pieces or tiny little crevices, try a rotary tool. They're very easy to use. You just need to make sure you go nice and smoothly because they can cause a lot of damage if you don't. Now I've got my Orbital Sander back out. It's still got 100 grit on it, and I'm just going over the Timbermate Woodfiller that I used earlier on to fill the hardware holes and any other dents that I came across. This would have to be one of my least favourite jobs when I'm flipping furniture, and that's masking up pieces. I know it gives me a nice straight line, I just don't like doing it, but I need to do it in this in order to maintain the bottom raw piece and the inside of the unit. Now that I've finished masking up, it's time to start priming. I'm using Zinsser Waterbased primer, and I'm just applying it with a brush to make sure I get into all the little detailed areas.
When you're doing it, I use the 240 scrubber sheet thingy, and you keep on going harder thoroughly until the stand's off and it's pristine.
Just to translate what my daughter said, in between your coats of paint, use a 240 grit sandpaper or above to make sure that your paint's nice and smooth and that there's no little pieces left over. Now we are up to my favourite part of any furniture flip, and that is spraying. I've got my Wagner Spray Gun out and I'm using a creamy white to give this whole piece a nice first coat. While our first coat of paint is drying, I'm doing a paint wash on the top of this unit. So I'm using the same white that I used on the unit, and I've done a 50-50 ratio of 50% paint to 50% water. And I'm just lightly painting this on in sections, and then I will wipe it off with a clean cloth. Now the good thing about doing a paint wash is you can use the paint wash as many times as you like until you reach your desired colour. You can even add more paint to the paint wash ratio, or you can add more water to dilute it even more. As you can see, I've done a couple of coats of this paint wash because I want it to be a nice light grain. We are now going in for our second coat of colour. Once again, I've got my Wagner Spray Gun and I'm just spraying nice and smoothly across the piece to make sure that my colour is even. This would have to be the most satisfying part of any flip, and that's removing the masking tape or the painter's tape once you've finished painting. The best time to remove your tape is when the piece is still wet but nearly dry. The reason for this is if your paint is too wet and you're removing your tape, if you have any runs or any excess paint, you risk that paint running into the area that you don't want it to run into. And on the other hand, you don't want your piece dry because you've painted over the top of this masking tape. So as you're pulling it off, it will potentially rip, which may cause more damage to your piece when you're trying to remove those little pieces left behind. Now that it's all removed, we're going to give the whole unit a top coat using Bondal Monocel Clear Varnish, water-based in Satin. Here I'm just adding the top of the piece back to the base of the piece. So I'm just screwing in the hinges on the back. We're going to be adding some handles back to the side of this unit, so I've grabbed my hole punch jig and I'm just using the handles that I'm adding on to measure up and make sure that I have the correct settings before I start drilling. Now that I'm confident that my settings are correct, it's time to grab your cordless drill and you can drill your holes for your hardware. I'm putting one handle on either side of the unit so that it can be easily moved around. I'm also adding an extra handle to the front centre of this unit so that the lid can be opened easily. Now, do you remember what this unit looked like before we started? It looked pretty old. It looked like it had had a very hard life, and it was super dirty. But look at her now. She's been painted in a beautiful creamy white, has brushed gold hardware and a gorgeous paint wash top and base. I couldn't be happier with the outcome of this piece, and I hope you are too. If you have any questions at all, please ask. And guys, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.